Pathways Career Building 101 workshop. We're super excited today to be talking about emotional intelligence as a soft skill that you can use to grow in your career. My name is Holly Lee, and I'm with the Pipelines and Pathways program. We work with individuals in the community to help them gain access to employment at the University of Virginia, and we do that through opportunities like training such as this and training programs and career services. So we're super excited to have you here today. I want to quickly have our team introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adriana Vest-Turner. I serve on the Pipelines and Pathways team as an opportunity navigator. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I will pass it over to Claudio.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claudio Otero, and I also serve as an opportunity navigator with the Pipelines and Pathways program. Thank you all for being here, and I will now pass it to Melissa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Hanna. I work as the community outreach specialist with an emphasis in marketing for Pipelines and Pathways. I will be monitoring the chat today. So if you have any questions for Grant, our presenter today, we will be looking at that. And if you have anything that you would like to say, you can raise your hand or enter it into the chat. Also, we encourage anybody, if they want to show their faces, it's a lot more fun that way. If you want to turn on your camera, a little bit more interactive kind of workshop, and it's always more fun. And so with that, I'll give it over to Holly to start our workshop.
All right. Well, welcome again, everyone. Again, please feel free to raise your hand during this, enter questions in the chat. This is meant to be very engaging because we have a real treat today. We have Dr. Grant Tate, who is with us. He is going to be speaking about emotional intelligence. He's an expert in many things, including emotional intelligence. And I think a lot of times we don't think about the importance of being self-aware and building relationships with others and how important that is in growing our careers. So he's going to give us some insight on that. And so I'm going to hand it over to Grant.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here in this program, and happy to be on the pathway with you to see what happens next in your career. Emphasize again, this is for you. Emotional intelligence can be a bit theoretical, and I've tried not to go theoretical on you, but to get as practical as we can. I mainly want to focus on soft skills. And so I've got a set of slides, but let's not let the slides ruin conversation. So let's please raise your hand, put a chat in, just interrupt me as you see fit, and let's make this as helpful for you as we can. The other thing I'd like to say is you heard the doctor in front of my name. I'd rather you think of me as a guy who started his career working in a peach orchard. The most that I ever learned about management and leadership came from starting at age 15, working in a furniture store. And so those kinds of practical working skills has probably been some of the things that had the biggest impact on my life. It helps to learn stuff as you go, but it's nice to have those kinds of experiences where the real people skills count. So let's take a look at some of the slides. Okay, let me know if you can see this. Okay, great. First thing I'd like to say is that this is sort of a typical saying we all have in the consulting business. People are hired for their concrete skills and abilities, what you put on your resume, but they are fired for lack of soft skills. And that's especially true the more you advance in a job. But people, when you do a resume, you say all the things you can do. I know Microsoft Word and all those sorts of things, but it's really those soft skills are what really helps us be successful. And so today we'll explore where those soft skills come from and talk about some ways that we can be aware of them and also to perhaps improve them. And so here's so what are soft skills? I'm not going to ask you to read all this stuff, but just to mention a few of those things: communications, teamwork and collaboration, problem solving, adaptability and flexibility, leadership, emotional intelligence. There we are, it's on the list. Time management, conflict resolution, cultural competence, customer service. You can make your own list, but basically those are the things we're talking about. And so let's just talk about what is the road to success if we're thinking about soft skills and hard skills and such. And we like to talk about a little formula. If you want, starting over the right-hand side, if you want improved results, you have to do something differently. You can't keep doing the same old thing. You know, the old saying, doing the same thing over and over and expecting better results is some people say, well, that's insanity or whatever. But basically, if you want improved results, something has to change. And so what we're looking for is positive behavioral change. And notice the word positive here. If you want to change people or change the way you do things, try to increase your positive behavior. Don't go self-critical. Or if you're trying to work with someone else, the best way to help them be successful in what they're doing is to try to emphasize what they're doing right, not be stopping things. Now, if you're doing something really, really dangerous or something that is really, really sabotaging things, well, sure, quit it. And, you know, you can think about some things like improve your health. Well, one of the things you can do is stop smoking. But on the other hand, there are lots of other things you can do as positive change, like exercise, eat right, and so forth. And when we're working with other people, and so a key element is how can we do this better? What are the skills and capabilities that are positive things that can help us create the change we want? And then the next thing on the left is our goals. We need a sense of direction. Now, generally in my business, we have people establish some concrete goals, SMART goals they're called: specific, measurable, attainable, realistically high, and time related. And so those kind of directional things can help us achieve better. So if we want to improve and we want to improve our results, then set some goals to get there and take them in incremental steps. And it's important to learn how to do that in a way that creates the change we want. My dad used to say that if you can roll a cannonball at a frog, and the frog jumps out of the way every time. But if you roll it BBs, it'll eat them until it can't hop. And that was his theory of change, which was you try to move too fast, too big, nothing happens. But if you make small incremental change, you can achieve great things. So next on the left would be skills and knowledge. Skills are basically the ability to get things done, to do equation. I can do this, I can do that, I can use software, I can dig with shovels, whatever. And then knowledge breaks down into, K is knowledge, breaks down into two elements. One is the explicit knowledge. That's the knowledge that we learn through school, math, science, all those sort of things. I can measure it. I give you a test. Then we have what's called tacit knowledge, and they are the rules of thumb that experience gives us. And those are things that are based now almost like intuition built in. And that's why experience counts. But if you think about mathematics now for a minute, the A on the right-hand side, factoring the skills and knowledge, is attitude. And so the skills and knowledge don't mean much if you got a lousy attitude. And so let's explore attitude for a minute. So we define attitude as habits of thought. This is the thing that when things happen, you have a automatic reaction to it. And so let's think about where do those habits of thought come from. And so you look at that little diagram on the right-hand side. And this is a map of messages that we get as we're growing up. Positive messages and negative messages. And so if you are constantly getting negative messages as you're growing up or from other people, and some of those can relate to your career, you know, you can be a nurse, but you can never be a doctor. Or, you know, you can work in the post office, but you can't be an engineer. And those things get ingrained in us. You know, some people get the extreme ones. You're no good. You never accomplish anything. But over on the right-hand side of those kind of encouragement that we get in little messages all the time. Now, that mix of the positive and negative messages is one source of what our attitude is. And also, by the way, what our self-confidence is. And so if we're trying to improve a person's self-confidence or their attitude, how can we do that? Now, I can, you know, somebody who's been told, you know, you can only be a nurse, you can't be a doctor because you're not smart enough or whatever. I can say all day, you know, you really could be a nurse. Yeah, but they won't believe me, no matter how many times I say it. But if I say to them, okay, let's take this science course, or let's practice this little skill. If I then take the small incremental change and I keep doing that and give that person good feedback, yes, you're doing well, you did well at this step, let's go to the next step. And those sorts of things there's a way you can create change. And so if someone is got a negative feeling about themselves, give them positive experiences and give them the ability to show what they can do with those small experiences and give them feedback. It's fundamental to good leadership and management. Now let's talk about self-confidence for a minute. Where does low self-confidence come from? Now, I'm going to not say, well, you know, some people obviously have a severe mental condition that what I'm saying doesn't apply to, and that's a different case. But in a normal situation, that person's giving themselves bad messages. I can't do math because I'm not good with math. Well, what that says is that person has never either had the opportunity to learn with a good teacher or has never practiced mathematics. Anybody can learn mathematics. You know, in the past, when I was growing up, people said girls aren't good with math. Well, that's just pure baloney. It just says that they were not given the opportunity to learn math in the way that the boys were, perhaps. So if I have somebody that has some self-confidence issues, then the question is, how do I help them remove those negative messages in their head? I can't. And the answer is affirmations. It sounds like a silly idea even, but I tell people, get 3 3x5 cards and write the kind of things that you'd like to be on those cards. I am a good student. I am a good learner. I am a good parent. I am a person that people like. And then we say, read them out loud to yourself in the morning. Read them out loud at lunchtime. read them after late in the afternoon at dinner, and read them before you go to bed. And that, some people say, oh, it's a silly exercise. Well, what that actually does is the science of that, it's helping replace those negative messages. I'm telling myself I can do it. Any of us who watch sport knows that works, because looking at the Super Bowl last week, if you did, like 130 million people did or something, is that those guys are jumping up and down, telling each other, we're going to win this game. And that's all about those positive messages. Now, there's a little element, I wrote mindset here. And so a woman named Carol Dweck has actually looked at people's abilities to learn and to succeed. And she said there are two mindsets. One is a growth mindset, one is a closed mindset, fixed mindset. And the growth mindset people said, I don't know this thing, but I can learn it. And I'm willing to try. And if I practice hard enough, I will learn it. And the people with a closed mindset said, I don't have that talent, so I can't do this job. And so this that I described is some way that you can start to change that mindset. And so emotional intelligence is the ability to understand yourself and to understand others around you. And part of understanding yourself is to understand those messages in your head, those messages that limit what you can do, that limit the kind of tasks and jobs that you're willing to try. So let's just take a look at something that, how do you learn? And it's called, this little cycle is called deliberate practice. You know, the old saying about how do you get to Carnegie Hall, where all the people practice and all the people perform in New York City? And the answer, how do I get to Carnegie Hall? The answer is practice, practice, practice. And so first, at the top, you see identify skill. And then you design an exercise to try that skill and actually practice it, and then get immediate feedback. And it's best from somebody who's not involved. And then push harder and start the skill again. Keep going around the circle. And what's essential about this is that if you're not able to hear and act on the feedback, you can't get better. And so being able to hear the feedback, to be able to accept even critical feedback becomes really important. And this is how coaching and mentorship actually works so well, is work with people that you can receive good feedback from, who can tell you that, you know, if you did this a little differently, then it would work well. And so like those people who are coaches and who are advising other people, what you try to do is to say, not, stop doing it this way, but look, let me show you how to do this. Or if you could just change this a little bit, then it would work better. So let's try it. And I can tell you one thing, that working with teams in organizations, a lot of those teams are not good with practicing. They're not good with feedback. They don't say, well, let's stop and look at how we did that and how can we do it better next time. Okay, I'm just going to take a breath now and say, do you have any questions so far? Okay, you know, instructors will ask you questions if I don't get any. So, okay. So let's talk about emotional intelligence. So what's the most difficult interpersonal situation you've faced this week? And if you said none, then you have probably been home sick. So all of us face those situations once or twice. And so given that situation, then what are some questions we might ask about it? Or what are the questions you might ask yourself about it? How did I feel? What was at stake? How did the other person feel? Did I listen? Did they hear me? Was I understood? And those are those kinds of questions. What in the other questions about improvement? What could I do to improve the communications? How could I listen better? And those situations can be really beautiful, wonderful personal development exercises when we in fact have a conflict.
We have a comment from Laura. A lot of people are negative about my abilities.
Sorry, say again?
Laura's comment says a lot of people are negative about my abilities. We also have a comment from Sam Stapleton. A client I coach told me they were really struggling with their personal life, and this struggle zaps their energy from focusing on finding a new position to support themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so two different things. So people, so let's take the first question, and would you mind expanding on it?
And Laura, if you'd like to, you can use the chat
to
expand if you wish.
So I guess the first thing I would say about that, it would be it's kind of a quick reaction on my part is what other people are being negative, and are those people important to what you're trying to do? And that goes back to that chart of the negative and the positive indicators. So the most important thing would be that the people who may be negative about your abilities, the listed on your resume, would be the people who are well aware of the potential for that list in hiring. So if someone is looking at that list and saying what you've listed on the resume needs to be improved to help your ability to get a job, that's quite different from you looking at that list and say, Laura, no, you don't have those abilities. And so I guess my point would be that valid feedback from somebody who is important in the situation and who has the knowledge and capability to make a critical comment would be important to listen to. If the other people, if they are just negative about you for some reason, is it somebody that's speaking with importance and authority? Is that helpful, Laura?
She had commented, I have disabilities and no one believes that I can do anything before you had answered. And then she said, Sam is right about people struggling with their personal life and struggling to find a new position to support themselves because it zaps their energy.
Right. So let me speak about the disabilities for a minute, because that's been my wife is an occupational therapist, and we actually had a conversation about that the other day. And so it's with regard to the disabilities, one of the things we talked about is how important it is, back to the positive messages again. It's really important to be able to define what you are good at and then find the kind of situation where you can exercise your strengths. Extremely important. Now, it might mean that you need further help from someone, either to test your abilities or to work with you to help define them. And I would say to look at both soft and hard skills. In other words, your skills to specifically do job tasks, but your abilities also on the soft skill side. And then to be able to emphasize those in both your personal and your job situation. I had a high school principal who knew this principle about positive. He said to me, it's probably one of the most important things he ever said to me was, Grant, it's everybody has good in them. It's up to you to find it. And so, try to work with some people who can give you encouragement and can help you be aware of your talents and then to develop those talents and to apply them at whatever you want to do in life. Okay.
We have one more new comment from Marinachi Wilson. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. And feel free to chime in if you'd like to, or you can stick with the chat, whatever works. But they say, I often struggle with being very introverted. Others perceive me as being rude. How can I overcome this since I have no issues with my abilities in teamwork, skills, or education? This often makes me feel mistreated by some team members.
Yeah, well, let me comment about the introvert for a second, because in working with leaders, there's always a question of what kind of skills are important for leadership. And on the scope of introvert, extrovert, the situation is, from a leader's standpoint, they're introverts as leaders and they're extroverts as leaders. And one of the things that's important is what are the things that build your energy and what are the things that that sap your energy. My wife, for instance, she calls herself an introvert, and I think she really is. She likes quiet, and she, based on her job, requires her to be an extrovert during the day. She comes home and works in the garden to get energy back. And so one of the things that helps in group situation is to be able to find some things that people in the other group are interested in and learn to ask them questions. It doesn't take a lot of questions that they might be interested in or things that you might be curious about. And that would get them talking, and your questions would illustrate your ability to have interest in the other people. So that might help. With respect to, I guess I would say, is your quietness causing them to think you're aloof or that sort of thing? But I think the questioning technique might be something that you can try. Here's an example. I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I don't watch the Super Bowl. I am not I participate in sports, but not crazy about them. But when I was working in big corporation, I watched the Sunday football game because I knew everybody on Monday was talking about it. I at least wanted to be able to say, yeah, I saw that so-and-so won, you know. And so if you're in a group situation and you know things that people are interested in, you can get them talking by asking them questions about things that you know they're interested in. But don't apologize for being an introvert. But the other thing I'd say about introvert is, good question is, are you classifying yourself? Is that a correct thing? And so I would ask, get back to emotion. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence, but why are you feeling uncomfortable in the group? Would you rather be outgoing, and maybe you're feeling insecure? There are lots of other things. So try to understand what's going on inside of you that creates that feeling. That would be how to explore your emotional intelligence in that situation. Does that make sense?
It looks like, yep, they say yes, that they are classifying themselves. They agree, yes.
Okay, good. All right, good. Okay. So what are we talking about with emotional intelligence? As I said earlier, it's a little bit theoretical, but it works as a framework to think about things. It's the ability to sense, understand, and effectively apply emotions to be more collaborative and productive with others. So it's an internal and an external. And Daniel Goleman is the guy who wrote the original book back in 1997 that described this, his approach to things. And good AEI, a person with good AEI, he said, is a person who's aware of emotions and able to regulate them. And this awareness and regulation are directed both inward to oneself and outward to others. And so the example of being quiet in the group is a pretty good example of this. And so what I was suggesting is, when people are talking and you're quiet, what are you feeling? And that being aware of those emotions and the implications of those emotions is important. So am I feeling insecure? Am I feeling threatened? What am I feeling? And what is this feeling, and where does it come from? And so then Goleman and others broke this emotional intelligence down into these categories. So on the left-hand side, all the self things, self-awareness. Do you know what you want and where you're going? You are aware of your thoughts, feelings, and behavior, and how well or not they serve you. And self-management is, now that I'm aware of that, you consciously connect your decisions and behavior choices to your intentions, values, and purpose. So let's talk about this thing. I feel angry. That is self-awareness. I am aware I'm feeling angry. I'm not just acting on it. But can I manage it? Do I lash out at other people or hit the wall, or what do I do? Or can I say, I know I'm feeling this. What can I do to take 5 breaths or something to balance this? And what has triggered this anger? Is it something from the past? Is it something that's going on now? And then over on the right-hand side is the social awareness. You're tuned into the emotion, needs, and concerns of others. I can sense other people, a sense of empathy. And then can I maintain those kind of relationships? Can I manage those kind of relationships? And the center of all this is, I understand myself, I understand other people, and I'm an authentic, self-confident person. Now, if you look at that, that's a pretty tall order to be able to be able to accomplish all these things. And so there's few guidelines that I found useful in thinking about this. First thing is a skill, I can identify and understand my feelings and emotions. And so I can, so here's something, I deal a lot with executives. And I can tell you that in the business world, especially the upper business world, there's a sense that I make tough decisions and based on facts and data and things like that. And how much is the emotion playing into those kind of decisions and the relationship with people at those levels? And business was sort of, it's gotten better, but has been very much non-emotional in their feelings. And so if I go in and ask one of those executives sometime, how are you feeling about this? I've got to have a tough conversation with one of my employees. Well, if you're going to have that conversation, how are you feeling? What emotions are you bringing to it? And that is really important to get in contact with that. And a question I often ask people if I'm having a coaching session with them and before I walk out of the room is, are you taking care of yourself? And I can tell you that a lot of times the honest answer is no. They're not taking care of themselves emotionally or physically. The next one is really important. I'm responsible for my own emotions. I own them. Anger is a good example of that. My spouse did so-and-so, it made me angry. Well, my response to that situation was, I'm angry, but they didn't make it. That person didn't make it. I own their anger. It's my emotion. And so, and therefore, I'm responsible for my actions, that is, regulating my emotions. So if I'm feeling anger and I do something as a result of it, I'm not regulating my emotions. So these are worth thinking about and repeating. I can identify and understand my feelings and emotions. And I want to tell you that takes thinking and stopping and breathing. When something happens, wait and think, and what am I feeling? And what's the proper response to this, particularly if it's something that's extreme? I'm not saying don't have emotions. I'm saying understand them. I understand how my emotions can help me make better decisions. And so there's the technical side of making decisions, the facts, and what's the situation and that sort of thing. But also, how does it feel? What's intuitively, what's the best thing to do? And that obviously the emotions with regard to impact on people makes a big decision. I have to make this decision to reduce my business size maybe and lay off people, but how does that feel? How does that feel to me and how important are those feelings? Here's another one. People have a right to their own emotions, and they are responsible for their resulting behavior. And so we often tell people, if people say, well, so-and-so is doing this because they are motivated by this. The answer is no, you can't know. You're guessing. And so ascribing a motivation to other people's behavior is not right, it doesn't work. And you're most often wrong. Now, you can say, okay, based on the person's background and their behavior, I can pretty much predict how they're going to react to this. That's okay. But what's really going on and what's really driving them is we can't know from the outside. I can observe other people's behavior, even seeing those patterns, but I have no right to assign motivations to them. And so this is, and so basically, if you then look at this, how do you work with other people? And the answer is, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a coworker, whatever, you can't change other people, but you can change your reactions to them, a response.
I have a question, Grant.
Sure.
These bullet points that you have here, is there a name for these bullet points, or are these just like, tenets of emotional intelligence or anything like that?
These are some of the guidelines, my guidelines.
Okay. Well, they're really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, helpful hints. And just from I can tell you from my own personal practice, a lot of these are hard, but it does take practice. And so back to that point now, if something happens and we back up, and say, okay, what am I feeling? I've had this situation, I'm feeling really upset or angry or sad or whatever it is. What am I reacting to? What did the other person do? What am I seeing? And this is really important in conflict management, to try to understand each other. And one of the things you can do is, when you have a situation that you're getting upset about, is what were the person's behaviors that made me concerned? Not try to say, oh, they did this because. No, you don't know. You just, what are the behaviors and what are the circumstances that led to that behavior? So if emotional intelligence is so great, how do I improve it? So let's take an example. This is the artificial intelligence and generated picture, not real people, obviously. But here's a person working on a computer, and the manager has walked over, and it's a very important presentation. And so she's walked over. And so what are the young person's assumptions when she's walking over? So one thing could be, here she comes again. I know she's going to be critical of my work. That happened last time. I felt really bad, and it really disturbed my whole day. Then she says something. What's the result? Oh, she just said something negative, and here we go again. Let's change one thing. Let's change the assumption. Here comes my manager. She's really good at this PowerPoint thing and at the data I'm looking at. Let me see if I can understand something from her that might make this presentation better. What then are the consequences? What happens next? Ask her some questions, get some hints, try to find out. And the only thing we changed was the assumption. And I have responsibility for that assumption if I'm that person. That's attitude. So if I take a positive attitude into the situation, and I'm looking for the way to learn how I can improve, that will set the assumptions for the interaction.
We got a comment from Sam. He said that's a great example of a growth mindset, being open to a positive assumption.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Now, there's a name for this interaction, and it's called the thinking path model. So something happens, I'm sitting at the computer, manager walks over, and my interpretation is my set of assumptions. The assumptions triggers emotional memory that's going to, now, what am I assuming? What's my state of mind? What's my attitude? And then I have an emotional response, and then a behavioral choice as a result of that. And then I get the consequences. So if I take the first example, she's going to be critical. My emotional response is fear, hesitancy, distance. My behavioral choices, well, okay, hi, good morning, but I'm frosty, cold. And what response is she going to have as a result of that? And then it's a negative outcome. On the other hand, I change this, and my emotional response is, good morning. It's good to see you. I was working on this and it's been hard. Any help would be really, really nice. And so my behavioral choice was to be positive, and I can get help and move on. This model really helps. And so how does it work? Well, it tells you slow down. There's a guy named Daniel Kahneman wrote a whole book about this. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. And the answer is that in his book is that our quick responses sometimes are the things that can get us into trouble. And so slow the response down, understand our feelings, start practicing your emotional intelligence, and your results get better. That is a true soft skill. Okay, so what are the things we can do to improve it? I like the big air model. In other words, listening. And one of the things I think all there are courses on how to listen better. And one of the things that I've always found helpful is that if we are when we hear somebody's thinking that we're talking, if we are thinking, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say? What's my response to this going to be? We don't really hear them. So again, slow down, listen to what that person is saying, and then develop a response. First understand and then respond. And there's we say wait, and that stands for why am I talking? And so developing that skill is really important for emotional intelligence. And by the way, I think Holly sent you a handout. It's got some other hints. There's 10 or 12 on that list. The other one I think is important that wasn't on the list is engage your curiosity about yourself and about others. So the situation that Laura brought up a while back, if you're in a group and you're really curious about other people, the questions come easy, or I should say easier. But everybody has something you can learn from, no matter who they are and what they do. And so I work with people from other countries. I am always curious about what it's like to live in Tokyo or Netherlands or whatever. As I've traveled to different places, I like riding buses because that's where ordinary people who live in that place go. They ride buses, but what is it that other people, about other people's lives that can enrich ours? And so if you're in a group and they're talking about things that maybe you don't even understand, but asking the questions about it so you can understand. If you're in a room full of scientists, maybe you don't understand science, but you can develop some questions that still can engage people in those kinds of things. So you can be comfortable in different groups just by learning to engage your curiosity and to learn about other people. And it's to learn something every day. So practice, soft skills. and be open and learn from feedback is really the key. Okay, here are a couple of examples. Rachel, a customer service representative, receives a particularly critical and harsh email from a dissatisfied client. Email's tone is upsetting, and Rachel feels a surge of frustration and defensiveness. And so it goes on to say, okay, what can she do to manage her emotional reaction and so forth? But first of all, let's think about, how does Rachel feel? Or better still, a better way to put it would be, if you're Rachel, how do you feel? I can't see your hand, so we'd love to have you engage in this. Yeah.
I would feel very angry and upset, I guess. So I know I would need to calm myself down before responding, because I could otherwise say something not appropriate or not nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so the time is important. If this this is an email, but if this is on the telephone while you're engaged with this person, it's even more difficult. How do you take a breath? Some of the people that we do personal assessments, and so some of the scientists working on those have done experiments with 3 breaths. And basically it's take a deep breath, hold it for 5 seconds, breathe in 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, exhale 5 seconds. And doing that 3 times can have a big impact on your state of mind and also on your physical being, like blood pressure. So here's a case where take 3 breaths. And then to, once again, saying, okay, I know how I feel. Is it the client's responsibility for my feeling? No, it's not. I'm responsible for my feeling and how I respond to this. Now you could say, well, you could dismiss the customer. She's not really important, that sort of thing. But yeah, she is important. And so how would emotional intelligence tell us to respond to this? First of all, I understand my feelings. And what about the customer? The customer is upset about something. My responsibility is to try to understand what that is. And that person was so upset, they reacted by sending a harsh email. So how can I help them by understanding their response and by helping them feel better and also answer their difficult question? And
I was
so,
just going to say, if I got an email like this, I would be immediately confused, because it would be like you're saying, Grant, like this person is emailing you out of frustration. So something must have happened along the way that got missed, or a deadline got passed, or something happened to create this anger for this person. And so, instead of assuming that I know what the reason is, because I'm not going to know.
exactly.
Asking them, like, you're obviously, this is a mistake has happened, we take ownership of that mistake. But what is the mistake? Can you help me understand, what to do to fix this, to solve this problem?
Right.
And
Yeah.
also,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and also, Professor Grant, you talked earlier about emotional intelligence, and you said to not only know about yourself, but about others as well.
Right.
So for a moment, you may have to just kind of walk away and then, pack your empathy and just realize that, that customer evidently has a problem, and they're not necessarily taking it out on you. It's just that they're dealing with something. So I think once you realize, you know, what your capabilities are in solving a problem and knowing that, hey, the customer is really dealing with something, then you can walk back and, you know, send out that send out that email that is, like you said in the scenario, something that's constructive, something that's not going to damage the, you know, the company's reputation and yours as well.
Yeah, very right. Yes. And so understanding your own emotional cycle and timing is really important. You know, we know that there are people who are slow to anger, some people are fast to anger. That also holds true for other emotions as well. And so our ability to learn and detect what we're feeling becomes really important. And the other way to look at something like this is think of the opportunities here in this response to this customer's response. Suppose our system is not working for some reason. And so this may be an opportunity to find out something that's wrong in our processes or procedures. Or how is this customer treated by somebody else? Can we find out why and respond? So this, and another way to look at this is, okay, as a harsh reaction, you can even have a judgment that, wow, should this person have written that in email? But you could still go back and try to say, all right, let's understand it and work with it. So that's very good. It's a good opportunity here. Here's another one. Tom, a junior data analyst, receives critical feedback from his supervisor after a major presentation. The feedback highlights a lack of depth in his data analysis, which could have potentially impacted the project's outcome. So how does Tom feel?
He probably feels scared that he's gonna be either fired or disciplined in some way.
Right. This is a junior data analyst, so presumably not very long in the job. And oh my goodness. And so what are some questions this situation raises in your mind? And so one thing I would say from a management standpoint now would be, how did the supervisor give the feedback? And so, you know, did the supervisors I had suggested earlier give the feedback in such a way that could be helpful? Like, you know, you didn't provide enough depth in this particular element of your data analysis. And so how can we help you add more depth to your analysis? Or, you know, what are the things that we can do to help? Is it more time? Is it more training? What is it? So there's an opportunity here again, which is this person probably needs some training perhaps, or access to data that Tom didn't have.
We've got Sam who's raised his hand.
Okay, Sam?
Yeah, I think kind of along the same lines of what you were saying, Grant. One thing that my manager does in my current position that I really appreciate is like if there's a disconnect between what he was expecting versus like how I performed or what the task was. I think he does a really good job of trying to make sure that his directions were clear and that the actual task, like, could he go back and read what he asked me to do and understand just from the email? Or what should there have been more follow-up? Because I think sometimes managers, they think that their direction is really clear. It may make sense to them, but they didn't check in with their, you know, with their team to make sure everyone was on board, or that, you know, everybody felt aligned with what we were doing. So I think before approaching, you know, in this scenario, before approaching Tom, I think that from a manager's perspective, he needs to really make sure that the task was clear and then evaluate if further training is needed.
Right. They're very good. Excellent. Well, one of the things here that's important, and when we do manager training, it's important to ask a person, how do you like to receive feedback? And there are people who just like it blunt. Hey Tom, you screwed up. Next time, dig deeper here. And go on. And there are other people who say you have to be very gentle. And I found that some people can't answer that question because they haven't really thought so much about it. But if you're working in a situation and with your manager, and it's a situation that it's good to have that conversation. Hey, manager, here's the way I like to receive feedback. I want your feedback, and it helps me feel better and be more encouraged if you make it positive first. But I'm not afraid of the critical analysis, but this is the way it would work better for me. And sometimes timing is right. And usually in organizations, we say feedback is not like good wine. It does not get better with time. So feedback immediately is a lot better than later on. And I can ask you guys, does a yearly performance evaluation help? And regardless of what you say, I can tell you that 85% of people, when surveyed, say in answer to the question, does your yearly feedback help you do your job better? 85% say no. Why is that? Because it's too general, too late. So the best thing you can do as in a job is to work with the people around you, your manager or direct report, as well as your colleague, and seek out feedback and seek it out in a way that helps you do the work better. Yeah. Okay. Raj, a longstanding employee, faces challenges in adapting to a new CRM software system that the company has recently implemented. His resistance to the change is noticeable, and he's vocal about his preferences for the old system. Everybody know what CRM is? Customer Relationships Management. But it doesn't make a difference what the software actually is, but the principle is there. So how does Raj feel?
He might be a little annoyed.
Yeah, well, threatened? Might he feel threatened?
Yeah,
so
might feel frustrated. Might have took him a
Right.
long time to learn the old system. Or maybe he felt like he had really mastered the old system and like this was a big,
Right.
change in people's routine can be really tough.
Yeah, and so how do we work with Raj? Looking at it now from the other side, not how Raj himself's feeling, but given this, we know Raj has been in this organization a long time. We try to change a lot of things. He doesn't like change. How do we deal with it? Yeah,
We
it's the
got
role.
Laura commented here, study until he's an expert is one solution. We have Tia that says support.
Yeah, right. So that rolling BBs. So teach him a little bit at a time. Give him time to understand the new system. Try to say, here's how it's going to help you. I find that statements like, it's going to make the CEO of this company rich is not a motivating statement, but how's something going to help each person is usually helpful. just as a side effect, we have in our personal assessments, we can actually measure this, how people react to change. And so if you have an organization where you have a lot of people like Raj, then change is difficult, but you have to spend more time trying to help them understand why change is needed, and that the way you learn is little by little.
We have someone who'd like to respond to that. Oh, please.
Okay.
Since he has been with the company for a long time, he should ask if he can take a course in the new CRM software system. And that would also show his team that he is a positive influence to ask for this class.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good suggestion. And also, I can say, looking at it as well, if we look at this situation from Raj's manager's point of view, for instance, and let's take an extreme attitude on the part of that manager. Raj has been around a long time. Raj hates change. I know he's going to be a problem. So let's just say, Raj, this tough. This system's coming in, get ready, we're just going to do it. Or Raj is over the hill, his skills are obsolete, he can't learn this stuff. Now, what can we say about that set of assumptions? All wrong. And so that kind of bias in people and in organizations is often there. It's basically it's age discrimination. And the data shows, yes, people can learn. Yes, they may have psychological resistance to it. But with Raj, again, what can Raj do to change his emotional intelligence regarding change and that sort of thing? Raj could say, oh, this new software system is coming. How does that make me feel? What's my fear? And, we can't describe motivation to Raj, but, we just know from studies that people like Raj might feel very insecure with all this change, and he's not giving a chance to do it. Or people are making assumptions about his capabilities or lack of capabilities. And so now you can take this also can be another example of the question we discussed earlier about disabilities. Perhaps Raj has a sight problem. But the question would be, what can we do to help Raj in terms of giving him the time, the capabilities, and the technology to be able to help him work with the system in a way that's comfortable for him. Okay, so that is the wrapping up. I'll go back to the thing is like practice your soft skills. Be aware of your feelings. Be sensitive to others, and be open to and learn from feedback. Those sort of wrap up points. So now we've got 15 more minutes, I think, and open to any questions you might have. No, one of the things I mentioned working in a furniture store, and the owner of this store was a fabulous trainer for emotional intelligence. I was 15 or 16 years old when I was 15 years old when I started, and I worked that place on weekends all through college. But I was doing bookkeeping, so the owner and I sat on a mezzanine where we could overlook the front door way down in front of this furniture store, over the top of all the furniture. And a person would walk in the door and he would say to me, "Grant, who is that person?" And I would say, "Oh, that's Mrs. Jones." And he would say, "When was she here last?" And I would have to rack my brain. I said, "Well, I think maybe 3 weeks ago." "And what did she ask for?" And then he would take me through a series of thinking about who is this person? What are they interested in? And basically ending up on the thing of how can we help this person? And that exercise time and time and time again really helped me at a young person become aware of other people. And of course, he was trying to sell furniture, but what he was teaching me is how to think about people and other people's feelings and interest. And it had a huge impact on my future life. And so my lesson from that is every single job you've been in, every single situation, every single group, every single experience can help you hone your own skills. And if you look at those as learning experiences.
I would be kind of curious to know, you had mentioned like in terms of like positive affirmations and kind of like reviewing those. Something that stood out to me is that you mentioned like looking at them multiple times throughout the day.
Right.
I think what is that like studies wise, is it proven that is proven to be more effective in terms of creating neural pathways?
Yes. Yeah. I can't cite the studies, but the answer is yes. It's important to write the affirmations in a positive way, not say, "I will be a good student." Write it as if you are that good student now. So that turns out that writing them that way is important. But I can tell you that we've been able to we can measure self-confidence on our assessments. And so we've had sufficient experience to see a change in self-confidence as a result of that exercise and coaching along with it. Takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight, but if you so 6 months or a year, you can see a definite change. When I started doing assessments years back, the people who were teaching assessments saying, "Well, empathy is pretty solid. It won't change much on the assessments." And the answer, that's wrong. You can also help coach people in empathy. And it's through the process that we've described today, which is to help them listen better, be curious, pay attention to the other person, and try to understand who they are and what they are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if anybody does not have a positive affirmation, I definitely encourage thinking of one. And if you can't think of one, a quote from like your favorite book or favorite author or singer or whatever, celebrity, somebody who said something that meant something to you, resonated with you, that can be your positive affirmation. And it, that's just one creative way to think of one.
So I had one situation, sort of an extreme example of that. I was talking to a woman in a healthcare organization, and she was a manager in a group of other managers, and she was the only one without a higher degree in the room. And she felt somewhat like Laura was expressing, she felt very much out of place, got constant feedback that she didn't speak up enough, even though, in my view, she had a lot to say. I gave her a small book on famous speeches by women and asked her to pick one of those speeches each week and read it out loud into a mirror every day. And then add, as the week goes on, don't just read it, put expression into it. And it made a huge difference in her life and career. Now that is an affirmation gone wild, because it was several page speeches in some cases. But feedback from her was really, really positive. Hey, this thing works. Because that also helped her be confident in her articulation of the words and being able to express the emotions in the speeches. Other questions? So I guess the question I would have for you, and if somebody could step up and answer, is like, of all the things we talked about today, what is the one thing you will take away and actually act on?
I'm going to remember those tenets of emotional intelligence that you had bulleted. Those are really helpful.
And also practice, 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 and learn from your feedback.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, yes.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so I think we can just wrap up on this list again, because I put it back up on the screen. I can identify and understand my feelings and emotions. And I would say on that one, practice, practice, practice. And I want to tell you, it's not easy. You talk, when I was growing up, they talked about people are carrying their emotions on their sleeves. They're there for everybody to see. In my life, and particularly in my, I was a manager in a high-tech company, and emotions weren't something that was everybody welcomed, welcome being expressed. So, we're a technical organization. I am responsible for my emotions and I own them. Yes, for sure. And I'm responsible for my actions, like regulating my emotions. Then understanding how my emotions can help me make better decisions. Yes. And other people have a right to their own emotions and responsible for their resulting behavior. And I can observe other people's behavior and see patterns of behavior, but have no right to assign motivations to them. And I want to tell you this last one. If you have a close relationship, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, this one is really important. Yeah, just try saying to that person, "You're always doing this because of so and so and so and so." No, it doesn't work. Yeah. But
We had the chat, everybody said something in the chat. So let me just go through the list here.
Right.
So Laura said, don't assume the worst. Sam said, make a positive assumption first. Tia said, remembering positive affirmations. Lauren, again, the affirmations. Nikandu said, listening more using the WAIT acronym that you came up with there. Laura, again, being positive, being open to others, listening and don't take constructive criticism negatively, learning from it, growing. Vicky Thompson says active listening, listening to understand, waiting. There's a lot in here, but I think I got everybody.
And so
Yeah.
the thing I would say to you is, what are you going to do to practice what you've learned here this week? So go think about it. Think about it in your relationships, in your learning, in your work, in your home, and see what you can do to actually practice the one thing that you said you learned from this. And then see what feedback you get. And so I'll be quietly cheering for you all. So even though I don't really know you. And it's been a real pleasure to be able to learn about you and the program, and wish you all the best of success.
Well, thank you so much, Grant, for lending your time today. This was a great conversation. Some good takeaways for us to start thinking not only about our own emotions, but being observant of others and taking their situations into consideration before making assumptions and judgments. So thank you so much. So with that, everyone, I think we will go ahead and end. A couple things. We did record this so we could send it out, send out the link. You also have a link to an EQ assessment that you can take, and we will send you your results. So that'll give you an idea of how strong you are in certain areas and where you might have opportunities for growth. So with that, we're going to end. Again, I'd like to invite you all to reach out to Pipelines and Pathways if there's ever